Welcome back to the Lumiose Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we're going to be answering a very important question in the Pokemon universe, and that is, why is Mega Evolution in some regions but not others? Mega Evolution is like the fan favorite gimmick. I mean, we've got Mega Evolution, Z-Moves, Dynamax, and now Terastallization. And Megas are the one that people are still always going back to, and, are always going, oh, I hope Scarlet and Violet brings back Mega Evolution. Oh, I hope in Gen 10 they bring back Mega Evolution. Oh, I hope they start adding more Mega Evolutions. It's always the talk of the town, and yet it's not in every game. The only games that we see Mega Evolution in are X and Y, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. That's it. Like, that's literally, that's all of the games that we see it in. So, the question is, why is this? Well, first, the theory that was first presented was the Mega Evolution timeline theory, which is that some games take place in a Mega Evolution timeline, and some games take place in a non-Mega Evolution timeline. So basically, a timeline where there is such thing as Mega Evolution, and a timeline where there's no such thing as Mega Evolution. Now, I did a whole video on this, and, I highly recommend you check it out so we can kind of break it down and pick it apart. But basically, there is a lot of flaws to this because, for example, in Scarlet and Violet's the one with the biggest flaw in this, is that Scarlet and Violet does not have Mega Evolution in it. You cannot use Mega Evolution. So, your knee-jerk reaction there would be, okay, so Scarlet and Violet is in the non-Mega Evolution timeline. But Scarlet and Violet does reference Mega Evolution. It refers to Roaring Moon. The Occult books say that Roaring Moon seems to resemble or have a relationship to a phenomenon that occurs in another region. Now, these books are indeed sketchy, dubious, whatever. They're not to be trusted. But the important thing is, what they're claiming about Roaring Moon is the thing that's dubious here. Roaring Moon having a relationship to this phenomenon is the dubious thing here. We don't know that that's true. But the fact that they're referencing a phenomenon in another region, that much is true. That is Mega Evolution. That's from Kalos. It is still referencing a real-world thing. It's the relationship between the two that is the dubious part of this. I've seen many people suggest, oh, the Occult books don't count because Scarlet and Violet says that it's a dubious magazine, so Mega Evolution doesn't really exist there. And no, I think people are missing what's dubious about this entry. Another thing is that Scarlet and Violet also references the events of Sword and Shield. You can find a book in the Naranja or Uva Academy where it's Sonia's book that she wrote about the main plot of Sword and Shield, which, specifically you get to read an excerpt about the moment where Bee destroys the mural in Stow-on-Side and reveals that there's a statue of Zacian and Zamazenta behind it. That whole thing being referenced in Sword and Shield, or in Scarlet and Violet rather, would imply that Sword and Shield may have also taken place in the same timeline as Scarlet and Violet, which means that it is also a Mega Evolution timeline game. So I think the best explainer for this is probably another one that people proposed, and it's really a fairy timeline versus a non-fairy timeline. What that basically means is the games that Mega Evolution was introduced in also introduced the fairy type, and so perhaps it's just in any game where there's the fairy type, Mega Evolution exists in that world, and any game where there's not the fairy type, Mega Evolution does not exist. So basically, X and Y onwards are all in the Mega Evolution timeline. However, Black, White 2 and everything behind it are not in the Mega Evolution timeline. And there actually is some, or fairy timeline again. Now, there actually is some evidence to this, such as the fact that, if you look at the Kanto games, we have one Kanto game that is in the fairy or Mega Evolution timeline, and that is the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee games. And we have in the non-Mega, non-fairy timeline, we have Fire Red, Leaf Green, or Red, Blue, and Yellow. And if you look at Red, Blue, Yellow, Fire Red, Leaf Green, it shows the story of Red. You play as Red, your rival is Blue, and you go through your Pokemon adventure. Blue becomes the champion, you defeat Blue, and then, you know, in the events of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, we find out Blue's now a gym leader and all this. Now, you also, the important thing is that you take on Team Rocket in these games, and you, Red, defeats Team Rocket. However, in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, Red and Blue have already been on their Pokemon journey, and in fact, are now just like trainers that are already established, yet Team Rocket has not been defeated. It is up to you, the player character in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, so what is it? It's just occurred to me that I have no idea what the player characters are supposed to be called in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. But either way, the player character goes through and they're the ones who defeat Team Rocket with some help from Red and Blue. But basically there are events that transpire in Red and Blue's story in Fire Red and Leaf Green, Red, Blue, and Yellow that don't transpire until a few years later during the Let's Go timeline, during their player character's journey. It doesn't occur until then. So that would imply that, again, there is a timeline difference there. And I'd argue that because in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, we see Red and Blue using Mega Evolution, it's very likely that they had Mega Evolution on their journey. They had access to it, much like you, the player character, does in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. And then later on, you know, this is where we get into Sun and Moon or Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, where you can battle Red and Blue in the battle tree, and they, again, use Mega Evolution. But then it's all separate from Gens 5 and below. Now, the question is, okay, fine, let's take this for a moment. X and Y onwards all have Mega Evolution because they're in the Fairy timeline. Well then, why is it that not every game from XY onward has Mega Evolution? Scarlet and Violet, I even said, references it, but doesn't have it. Sword and Shield doesn't have it, and could be in the same timeline as Scarlet and Violet. Also, oh, well, I guess that's it. Legends Arceus as well, and Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl would be the other two games. They also don't seem to have it. Well, I would actually argue that they do have Mega Evolution. You just don't see it in that region. And that's what this is all about, is why is that the case? I think the best explainer for this is one I've seen suggested by a bunch of people, and I absolutely love it. But that is that Mega Evolution may be outlawed in some regions. Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon gave us Dex entries for Mega Evolved forms, and we basically learned that this is a gruesome process. It talks about how, you know, Glalie has to break its jaw, and, you know, Gyarados suffers, like, so much anger. And, you know, it's literally, you have to think about what Mega Evolution is, which I also did a video on if you want to check that out. But Mega Evolution is literally taking a Pokemon's ancestral genes and bringing them out to evolve the Pokemon further. That is very likely a painful process. It's not regular evolution. That's why it's called Mega Evolution. It's just a temporary form they access only during battle. You know, it's Mega Lucario is going to revert back to Lucario at some point. And that's the revert to probably is pretty painful. I mean, look, like, it's like going through a major change in a split second to not. I mean, again, think about what some of these Pokemon go through. Glalie's jaw in an instant snaps off. Then, in an instant, snaps back in together. That's honestly, like, this is a kid's game. That's terrible. So it may be that there are some regions that see what this does to the Pokemon and goes, yeah, that's not okay, you know? And that would specifically be the Galar region, the Sinnoh region, and then Hisui. Frankly, you could just argue, you know, the Hisui people didn't really have access to those kinds of things. You know, they were afraid of Pokemon as is. They're not going to be Mega Evolving them. And then also the Paldea region. You know, it's very, very possible that this is the case and that these regions just outlawed it because they think it's kind of gruesome and kind of wrong. And so I gotta say, I'd love to see a game that explores this, a game that has Mega Evolution but tackles the question of, Is this ethical? In a similar way to how Black and White kind of tackled the question of, are Pokemon battles ethical? It'd be cool to do that with Mega Evolution, because they've given it so much lore and like ethics behind it ever since we've left the Mega Evolution generation, where the focus was on Mega Evolution. So I'd love to revisit it in this light, you know. I think that would be really, really neat. Another point to this would be that we know there's a lot of trainers that are able to Mega Evolve their Pokemon, but don't in their regions. You know, for example, the primary one I can think of is Cynthia. Cynthia is shown to use a Mega Garchomp in Sun and Moon or Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. She'll use a Mega Garchomp in the battle tree, but also she will use a Mega Garchomp in the Pokemon anime as well. She used it against Iris. Now, the important thing about this, looking at the anime, and anime does not equal the games, but I do think there's something interesting to note here. In the anime, she uses Mega Garchomp in the Galar region. So maybe in the anime, Mega Evolution is allowed in the Galar region, but people act surprised by her Mega Evolving her Garchomp, so it's kind of as if she's never done it before. Again, maybe because it's outlawed in the Sinnoh region, because we have yet to see Mega Evolution occur in the Sinnoh region. But yeah, be sure to let me know what you think of this in the comments below. Also, let me know what you think. You know, I know we love Mega Evolution, but if Pokemon were real for a moment, let's close our eyes and live in that wonderful world. Is it okay to Mega Evolve your Pokemon? Is that ethically wrong? Because, man, I love Mega Lucario, but kind of think it is. Be sure to also like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. I love talking about lore and theories and history and kind of just world building and making the Pokemon world make sense. And if you love that stuff, then this channel would be a really good fit for you, I think. And until next time, I will see all of you later.